The walk is going fine. The sun is out. The pace is good. Then, suddenly, the leash goes taut. You turn around. Your dog has become a statue, anchored to the pavement, ears locked, eyes fixed. You pull. They resist. You tug harder, offering a treat. Nothing. To you, it is an infuriating battle of wills. To your dog, it is a profound, invisible crisis. Every single day, thousands of owners misread this exact moment. We look down at our frozen dog, and we assume they are being difficult. We think they are trying to dictate the route. We assume they are just stubborn. But behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. Because this isn't defiance, it is survival. You have no idea what is actually happening inside them. Let's dismantle the biggest lie in dog training, the myth of spite. Your dog is not trying to establish alpha dominance. Interspecies dominance theory has been comprehensively debunked by researchers at the University of Bristol. Domestic dogs do not use rigid pack hierarchies to control you on a Tuesday morning stroll. They are not plotting against you. They are reacting to the world. Some owners think a freezing dog is simply distracted, much like a hyperactive dog lunging at a squirrel. But that lunging dog is fueled by adrenaline and dopamine. The frozen dog is experiencing the exact opposite. They are in what neurologists call a dorsal vagal state. The behavioral inhibition system has engaged. They are physiologically stuck in a high arousal, low motor output trap. When your dog anchors their paws, it is an involuntary, autonomic reflex known as the Defense Cascade. Specifically, attentive immobility. This is a neurobiological gridlock. Their sympathetic nervous system shouts to fight or flee, while their parasympathetic system screams to rest and freeze. Both fire simultaneously. The brain freezes the entire muscular system just to process the environmental data. The biological proof is staggering. Researchers from Azabu University and Eötvös Loránd University strapped ECG monitors to dogs facing novel stimuli. They measured heart rate variability during these behavioral freezes. What they found shattered the stubborn myth forever. During a freeze, a dog's heart rate drastically decelerates. It is an act of acute, sudden bradycardia. Their heart rate variability plummeted by 30 to 40%. This proves the freeze is a stress-induced autonomic reflex. The parasympathetic system slams on the physiological brakes so the dog can assess a massive threat. It is never a relaxed refusal. It is an overwhelmed animal desperately scanning the area for safety. Look at the neurochemistry. A landmark study out of Colorado State University measured salivary cortisol in dogs walking in high-stress urban environments. Dogs that frequently froze on leashes had baseline cortisol levels up to 2.5 times higher than non-freezing dogs. The freeze is a chemical cortisol saturation event. Their bloodstream is completely flooded with panic-inducing stress hormones. But what triggers it? Emory University researchers used awake, unrestrained fMRI scans on domestic dogs. They presented them with conflicting sensory stimuli. Maybe the dog wants to walk forward, but they smell an unseen predator around the corner. The neuroscans lit up like fireworks. The canine amygdala and caudate nucleus went into overdrive. The brain fails to compute a path. This is acute cognitive overload. An epidemiological survey by the University of Helsinki looked at over 3,000 dogs. They found a massive 72.5% of domestic dogs suffer from generalized anxiety. The correlation between noise sensitivity and sudden behavioral freezing is off the charts. The modern urban environment is simply too loud, too fast, and too overwhelming for their hypersensitive acoustic processing. To truly understand the freeze, we must look backward. Thousands of years backward. In the wild, movement equals death. Movement draws the eye of predators. Freezing is a highly conserved evolutionary trait. It is perfectly designed to maximize auditory and olfactory intake while remaining completely undetected. Consider the Bonn Oberkassel dog burial in Germany. Dated to over 14,000 years ago, it suggests early domesticated dogs lived in tight, tethered proximity to humans. Wild wolves possess a massive flight distance. When threatened, they run. But early domestication and physical tethers artificially stripped away the dog's ability to flee. We bound them to our side permanently. Evolutionarily, dogs adapted a secondary coping mechanism. If you cannot flee, you freeze. Over 14,000 years, this became genetically hardwired as the absolute default response to a restricted flight path. The leash is that restricted path. They literally cannot run away, so their DNA bypasses their conscious thought and commands them to turn to stone. This behavior is quite literally carved into their genome. At Princeton University, whole genome sequencing compared wolves and domestic dogs. They found structural mutations in the GTF2I genes on chromosome 6. These mutations made dogs hypersocial. They made them love us. But they also catastrophically decoupled their natural wolf-like active avoidance flight response. By becoming our companions, dogs lost their ancestral predator avoidance locomotor pathways. They became genetically prone to freezing in conflict rather than bolting. Furthermore, genetic mapping at UCSF and Cornell University identified specific loci on canine chromosome 18. These exact markers correlate strongly with fear-induced freezing rather than aggression. This genomic trait is especially prevalent in herding breeds selectively bred to stalk and point. And there is a sensory delay, too. A University of Massachusetts study found wolves develop flight responses while completely blind and deaf at 2 weeks old. Domestic dogs do not develop flight responses until 4 weeks old, long after their senses fully develop. This critical delay means domestic dogs process visual and auditory stimuli first. They experience profound sensory freezing before their brain ever attempts to trigger locomotor flight. It is a brilliant adaptation. It is beautifully adaptive, and it is entirely involuntary. They are a prisoner to their own heightened perception of the world. But here is where this behavioral deep dive pivots to a matter of life and death. While freezing is a normal evolutionary instinct, a sudden change in this behavior is a glaring clinical red flag. If a normally fluid walking dog suddenly starts turning into a statue on daily walks, you must stop pulling the leash immediately. You must look deeper. Because sudden freezing is frequently a primary symptom of undiagnosed medical pathology. Researchers at North Carolina State University found that up to 80% of geriatric dogs suffer from hidden osteoarthritis. A seemingly stubborn refusal to walk is often the first and only clinical sign of agonizing joint pain. They are hiding their vulnerability. The dog freezes because the physical cost of moving forward exceeds their pain threshold. Clinical evaluations from the University of Lincoln showed that in nearly 80% of sudden onset behavioral cases, underlying pain was the primary driver. Once the pain was medically managed with targeted analgesics, the stubborn, freezing behavior vanished entirely overnight. And it is not just physical pain. It is cognitive decline. Studies from the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich reveal that canine cognitive dysfunction affects up to 68% of dogs over 15. It causes severe hippocampal atrophy. Sudden freezing in a senior dog is often a spatial mapping error, a terrifying lapse in geographic memory. They aren't being stubborn. They have essentially forgotten where they are. The freeze is a microseizure or acute spatial disorientation. Or consider SARDS, studied at Michigan State University. Sudden acquired retinal degeneration syndrome causes irreversible blindness in days. A freezing dog might be compensating for sudden vision loss, frantically using their nose and ears to avoid injury in a now darkened world. Punishing or forcefully pulling a dog who is freezing due to pain, dementia, or blindness causes profound psychological trauma. To the elite canine researcher, a dog freezing on a leash is never mere stubbornness. It is a highly measurable, genetically inherited, completely chemically driven state of intense autonomic and neurological arousal. Whether triggered by a sensory amygdala conflict, an ancient evolutionary instinct to halt on a tether, or the hidden onset of osteoarthritis, the freezing dog does not need a harsh leash correction. They need a neurobiological accommodation. They need your patience. They need a medical assessment. They need you to act as their advocate, not their adversary. The next time the leash goes taut, don't tug back. Step into their world. Give their ancient brain a second to catch up. Does your dog freeze in specific places on your walks? Tell me exactly where in the comments below. And subscribe because in our next video, we are breaking down why dogs sigh heavily when they lie down. The science behind it is stranger than you'd expect.